I think it's the coolest thing in the world that we could put money in the bank and the bank pays us to hold our money there. That's called interest. It's really nice. It's low risk, but there's a lot more to understand. It's so much more complex than just holding your money in the bank. And that's what we're talking about today. I'm going to give you the ins and outs. This is the ultimate guide to earning interest income in South Africa. Hi, my name is Yolanda. I'm a wealth advisor, and it is my goal on this platform to give you easy, actionable tips, content, and strategies that you can use to manage your money well, to live abundantly, and build generational wealth. I am the founder of this platform, Financially Fabulous Females. I'm also the director of Solomon Wealth Management. We are a boutique wealth management firm based in Durban, and we help South Africans all over the country and South African expats all around the world get their money right in terms of investments, retirement planning, risk planning, life insurance, estate planning. We do it all for you. And if you like anything you hear today and you want to implement the strategy for you, please click the link where you're watching this video, and I would love to chat with you one-on-one. So let's jump into it. We're trying to understand interest income today. But before we understand the ins and outs of interest in South Africa, there's something I would like you to understand when it comes to incomes in South Africa. It's something I call income quality. And this is not something you're going to learn in a textbook, or, you don't have to have a BCom or anything like that. This is something that I use with my clients to help them understand money better and help them understand the strategies that I put in place for them. In South Africa, they're always telling us how we have this income disparity, Gini coefficient, blah, blah, blah. It's just, I think it's really silly. You need to look at one statistic in isolation. There's so many things to look out for. But essentially today, I want to give you some insight on interest, but to understand that, we need to understand income quality in South Africa. I call it income quality because you retain less of it. And the first type of income, and I think this is where people are making the most noise about, is earned income. This is from your job. You're trading your time for rands. This is active income. It's active because you are trading your time for rands. And what we need to know about earned income, you can have multiple jobs, you cannot have a job, but earned income is taxed at the rate of personal income tax. Personal income tax in South Africa ranges from 18 to 45%, pretty high. And I would rate this as the poorest quality of income we could possibly get. And don't ask me why that most of the politicians are focusing here and everybody's counting here when it comes to the income disparity, right? So that's earned income. The next type of income we get in South Africa is rental income, right? You rent out a back room in your home. You have a couple of investment properties. You have a property investment business, right? A business is a little bit different, right? But let's just say we're keeping it small here, right? You have a back room, you have a granny flat on your property. This is rental income. This form of income is passive, right? You did work to get the property, to put together that back room, to let it out on rent. But essentially the income you're getting, you're not working for it. It's passive. Somebody's staying in your room and they're giving you rent. Now, the problem with this, if you're not in the right entity, is that you're taxed at personal income tax rates, right? 18 to 45%. I would put this as a better quality income than earned income because this is passive, whereas earned income is active, right? To get rid of this here, you wrap it in a different entity. The next sort of income we get in South Africa is the income I like, is dividend income. You can get dividend income by being a shareholder, by holding shares on the JSE, by owning shares in a private non-listed company, right? But you're not working in this business. You take some of your spare cash and you invest it, you buy a shareholding, 5%, 10%, one share, 100 shares into a business. Think Vodacom, Truworths, ShopRite, right? You can own shares in that company. If you want to own a bit of the economy, buy shares, not alcohol. This is a passive form of income because you're not working in those business. Those executives there are working for you to get you a dividend. Dividend income is great quality income because here you are paying dividend withholding tax. Dividend withholding tax in South Africa is 20%, pretty sweet. Earning 2 million as earned income, you lose 45% of it. Earning dividend income, you only lose 20% of it. Huge difference. There's some others that we can talk about, but I'm going to limit it here. And now we're coming to interest income. Interest income, passive, putting the money in the bank, you're forgetting about it. Unfortunately, it is better income quality than earned income because you're not trading your time for rands. You're just putting the money in the bank or some other interest-bearing investment. Problem is, the tax on this is 45%, maximum 45%, pretty high. However, there are exemptions, and which is why it's a better quality than earned income because you have the exemption and it's passive in nature. You're not trading your time for rands here. So that's essentially what I call income quality in South Africa. It's an important thing to learn, especially if you're trying to build wealth. So if you're finding value in this video, you learned something new, and I'm pretty sure you did with the income qualities demonstration. Please make sure that you subscribe to the channel to learn different bits about this, about money in a South African context. And feel free to share this content. I mean, it's something that your children should be learning. That income quality slide needs to be taught in schools. Nobody's going to teach it. I'm teaching it to you here for free. So share it with your friends, share it with your family, kids, grandparents, parents, aunts, uncles. Please share the video and help me reach more people like you. So what is interest income? You're taking the money, you're putting it in an interest-bearing investments. Most South Africans know interest-bearing investments as things like savings account in the bank because it's kind of easy to do. You go onto your app, transfer your money in there, and then you sort it and you're collecting interest. Fixed deposits, another form of interest-bearing investments. Government bonds, great rates for government bonds right now. Interest-bearing investments. Note that the content of this video is not financial advice. If you want financial advice, click the link where you're watching this video. You can chat to me one-on-one. If you have your own financial advisor, that's perfectly okay as well. Share this video with them and try to ask them, you know what, can you incorporate something like this into my portfolio? If they can't, then come see me and then I'll be able to help you, right? So various forms of interest income that you can be earning in South Africa. You got to have that lump sum though, or even contribute monthly to something. Obviously, if you're contributing monthly, it's going to take you a longer time to get to where you want to be. The bigger lump sums, I mean, you're getting better interest, quicker way to get to where you want to be. But what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of that? Right, the advantage of interest income in South Africa is the tax exemption. We spoke about it in the income quality board, right? For individuals under 65, your tax exemption is 23,800 rands. What it means is that interest income of 23,800 rand is tax-free every year, right? So if you earned 20,000 rand in interest, you're not paying tax on that 20,000 rand. If you earn 30,000 rand in interest for a financial year, right, your first 23,800 is tax-free. The difference from 23,800 to 30,000, that is what's going to be taxed, right? So that's that portion is added to your gross income and then you'll be taxed, right? So you can push yourself into the next tax bracket by earning interest income, right? So it's important to do these calculations because then you know where to invest, right? And from our income quality slide, you saw different kind of investments where you could be investing and not being taxed at gross income rates. Another advantage of interest income is that it's stable, it's fixed, particularly with bank products. You know the interest rate in advance. Before you put your money into that 32-day account, you're looking at it. You know in advance that, right, if I put 1 million in here, this is how much I'm going to get in a year, right? And know that when it comes to interest rates, it's quoted per annum. So if you see 10%, it's not 10% per month, it's 10% per annum, right? Unless they tell you differently, always read it as the rate per annum. I think a major advantage of interest income is capital preservation. Investments that generate interest income, particularly in savings account and fixed deposits, they literally can't be lost. There's zero risk at all. So your capital is preserved. There'll be a slightly higher interest rate. Hopefully you can get it at a higher rate than inflation, which means that your capital is preserved, the buying power of your capital is preserved, and you're making a little 1%, 2% if you're lucky. That's what bank products give you. It's also low risk. It's not like you're buying in shares and share price today is 10 Rand, tomorrow it's 8 Rand, the day after that is 5 Rand. That volatility is basically gone with interest-bearing investments because the rate is fixed. It's also easy access, again, particularly with bank products. You put it in there, you need it, other than the time limit and fixed deposits. I mean, a money market account, you can literally with one click, you can get easy access, high liquidity with interest-bearing bank investments. Although there's some really nice benefits for the very conservative investor, you're like, yay, I love interest income, give me some more. But look, there are some disadvantages as well. Firstly, it's the limited growth potential of it. Now, you can't just look at a 6% per annum interest rate and say, wow, 6% is really cool, especially when inflation is at what, 5%. That means you're only making 1% out of real profit. Because although the figures in your bank account are increasing with interest income, which is great, the buying power of your money is literally staying flat if your return rate is not greater than inflation. Major downer of interest income is that tax rate. It's horrible after the exemption. Imagine paying 45% tax on interest. You could be in other areas shielding from that and getting income other ways, for example, like dividend income, capital gains income, right? If you are over 65, your exemption is about 34,800. So as a retiree, you should be obviously definitely be utilizing the exemption, keeping some funds within that threshold of 34,800, but the rest, ideally, you want to shield it. And if you stay with me to the end, I'm going to give you a bonus on how you can get interest rate returns without the interest rate tax. Another downer of interest income is the opportunity cost. Because if you take a whole chunk of money and stick it in a fixed deposit, you potentially are losing out on other deals you could be getting somewhere else. All right. In some cases, and there's just so much available that you could be missing out on if you're locking up your funds in fixed deposits. Returns in equities can give you higher return, but obviously with the appropriate level of risk. Property could possibly give you a higher return, great tax benefits in terms of deductions as well. Another downer of interest income is the fluctuations in interest rates. Now, although the bank could say, all right, 8%, 9%, 10%, when the Reserve Bank brings down the repo rate applies first, and your fixed deposit, your interest income is coming down with the interest rates coming down. And we saw that very painfully during the pandemic because we find retirees holding a lot of their cash in interest-bearing investments. And when those interest rates came down, 3%, 4%, 5%, their income shrank. All right. So depending heavily on interest income is definitely a no-no. You want to utilize the exemption, yes, but you want to be in other forms of income generation with your investments. All right. And also think about the return after tax. Don't just think 10% a year coming in, 8% a year coming in. Always look at the tax implication when you're calculating your rate of return. All right. So let's look at a rate of return of interest versus dividend. So let's say a 2 million rands on a 45% tax bracket. That's a whopping 900,000 rand in taxes. Well, minus that 23,800, which is basically nothing. That's 876,200 rands in taxes on interest income. Painful. 2 million in dividend income with a 20% dividend withholding tax is 400,000 in taxes, right? Here you are maintaining or retaining 1.1 of your 2 million income. Here you're retaining 1.6 million in dividend income, right? That's almost 500,000 rand more. But no, to get this, there's risk involved. But 500,000, is that a risk you are willing to take? So interest income is definitely a very important part of diversifying and balancing your portfolio and having a balanced investment strategy to reduce your risk, especially for conservative investors. You can't be holding all of your money in interest-based investments. Especially for conservative investors, you can't be holding all of your returns in interest-bearing investments. So it's crucial for you to weigh in on the tax implications of your interest-bearing accounts and also to apply the full effect of inflation on your returns, because a 6% return with a 5% inflation gives you a real return of only 1%, right? Are you happy with a 1% per year return? So earning interest is definitely an effective way to shield your wealth over time, all right? Not really much of a growth component there, but here are a couple of strategies that you can use if you like super conservative and cannot handle the equity market. One, you want to look at some high return accounts, high yield savings accounts where you can get some decent returns. All right, you got to shop around here. Banks are super competitive. Don't just go to the big 4 or big 5 now. go to the smaller banks as well that can give you a fairly competitive return compared to the big five in South Africa. And no, I'm not talking about animals. Also look at fixed deposits. Obviously, with the banks, they want to retain your money for longer. And to incentivize you, they'll give you higher rates for longer fixed deposits, right? So that is one way you can utilize interest income with zero risk. The next thing is money market accounts. You can get this in your banking app. You can also look at money market funds, and to know the difference between those two, click the link in the description of this video, and you'll be taken to the video on where we spoke about the differences between money market accounts and money market funds. Government bonds. So when government needs to borrow, and in South Africa, that's all the time they need to borrow because the tax collection is not enough to meet the needs, especially with our bloated civil service and all of the grants and social programs that we have. The tax collection can't meet that. So government is borrowing. And who did they borrow from? They borrow from you via pensions, via investments. So what they do is they issue the bonds, South African government bonds. And to entice you to buy these bonds, to give them money, they promise you an interest rate, a coupon rate, right? And it can be quite high. You can buy them directly, retail bonds. I don't recommend it because one, you want to buffer for inflation, and equities, you can have like an 80%, 20% bond equity investment, right? Instead of being 100% in government bonds. All right, so the government gives you the coupon rate. You have various types. You have the 10-year, 20-year. You have like a 2-year inflation-linked bond. Huge variety, but ideally, I would recommend the ETF unit trust bond route. Right, you can get local, you can get offshore, you can get European, American, wide range available in South Africa. So you get really good interest, better than bank rate interest with the government. All right, so this super low risk, they are backed by the South African government, provide you great interest rates, but know that they do fluctuate according to repo. Then there are corporate bonds. So just like how the government needs to borrow, corporates need to borrow as well. In fact, with the investments that we offer, corporate bond returns are better than government bond returns, and government bonds are pretty sweet. So you're looking at around 12%, 11, 12% a year. Again, this will be adjusted for inflation. So when corporates need to borrow, they'll issue their corporate bonds, right? They'll offer you a coupon rate. Again, you don't buy this directly from the corporate. You buy it via an ETF, via a unit trust through somebody like me, and we will put this in place for you where you literally get great interest, right? The risk is not 100% secure like the bank. There's always an element of risk with unit trusts and ETFs, but it's quite low risk. Better than government bond with interest rates, better than banking interest rates. Corporate bonds are a nice bet. Great way to diversify your portfolio. Right? Again, this can be wrapped in ETFs. It can be wrapped in unit trusts. Another way you can get interest income and beating the taxes is through tax-free investments. But personally, I think this is an absolute waste because tax-free investment should be long-term equity, offshore equity ideally, right? But if you're earning interest within a tax-free investment, you're not paying any taxes. Pretty cool. Most banks are only offering interest-bearing tax-free investments. I wouldn't go that route. I don't go that route. I don't take my children down that route. We go the ETF unit trust route where we have a blend. Corporate bonds, government bonds, don't touch money markets, not for kids anyway, right? And equities. So a nice blend, diversified, right? So choosing the right interest investment strategy depends on your financial goals, depends on your risks, depends on your risk tolerance and your investment horizon as well. So interest income is definitely something that you want to look at for the long term, also for the short term as well, because it does provide nicely for short-term needs. And here's your bonus point. Your bonus point, if you want interest returns without the interest tax, one thing that you're going to be looking at in South Africa is hedge funds. Now, hedge funds in South Africa are very different from the Wolf of Wall Street type of investment. Hedge funds in South Africa are highly regulated. There's an intricate web of stocks and options and derivatives within that hedge investment. In fact, in South Africa, there's a hedge fund that has never had a negative year. All right. And luckily for you, I'm licensed to give you advice on hedge funds. And we have access to a wide range of hedge funds at Solomon Wealth. So click the link where you're watching this video. I'd love to chat to you more about diversifying your portfolio with hedge funds and interest-bearing investments, but to keep things more aligned to match the outcomes that you're looking for.